Alrighty, guys, buckle up because I'm about to tell you of a curse. This curse is on me, yet we all suffer for it. It began when Madam Web crawled her way into my life, and I instantly deemed it the worst movie of the year. Little did I know, Megamind 2 would come crashing through the gates of Peacock and snatch the title of worst movie from Madam Web. Thusly, I said Megamind 2 would be the worst movie of the year because absolutely nothing could be worse than this. And then along comes April. And I feel like I must apologize because I have no idea how I keep attracting these awful movies. Maybe I'm hexed. Maybe the universe just hates me and wants to torture us all. Either way, let's dive into Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, the masterpiece that proudly claims the title of Worst Movie of 2024. So far. And let me tell you, folks, it's hard to imagine anything could be even more horribler than this movie. Cue dramatic lightning strike. Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, is a 2024 action-adventure science fiction thing, directed by Zack Snyder and featuring Sofia Boutella, Ed Skrein, and our buddy Anthony Hopkins, who clearly needed some extra cash for a new car. In this delightful continuation of what I thought was the worst movie of 2023, Korra and her gang of 7 samurais return to the farming moon. You know, it's the moon in Rebel Moon, to protect it from the evil empire, or Mother World, or whatever you want to call the bad guys. Let's just say that if you're a farming simulator enthusiast who enjoys slow motion, this movie might be your jam, but for the rest of us, it is not the vibe. Speaking of vibes, Mr. Snyder seems to have an ego bigger than the Death Star. He's so in love with his own movie that it's seeping into every frame, and it's as annoying as Jar Jar on his worst day. Like that middle-aged guy at a bar who can't stop bragging about his high school football days, even though he never won that many games and is still convinced he's going to go and make the pros somehow. It's irritating and a little sad seeing Zack Snyder push this property on us and tell us how great it's going to be. And you know what's shocking? Netflix tried to casually sneak this embarrassing film onto our screens as if it were a delicate church fart. They knew it was bad. They knew the first one was bad. They've thrown in the towel, and maybe it's time for Zack to step back and question the importance of his epic that he's so obsessed with. Now, let's get into what is wrong with Rebel Moon Part 2. Well, I could save time by telling you what's right about it. Anthony Hopkins' robot. That's it, my friends. That's the saving grace buried beneath all the turds that this avalanche of turds offers. It's a cool character. It's a cool look. I dug it. The whole movie should have been about him. That's it. Anthony Hopkins' robot, the movie, The Scargiver, Part 2. So what's the main culprit here? It's Zack Snyder. 90% of the movie's problems trace back to his need to make every scene a pompous, slow-motion mess. Remember when he directed the Dawn of the Dead remake? It was such a tight and thrilling flick, but ever since 300, he can't let go of his slow-motion fetish. No matter how much it ruins the pacing or common sense. The moments in this movie where the music swells and time crawls to a snail's pace completely disrupts the flow or lack thereof. Snyder's style might as well be called pompous without cause, because when every scene tries to be epic, none of them are. But hey, the most shocking thing about Rebel Moon Part 2 is just how empty it is. I'm not talking about some deep thematic emptiness. I mean, this movie is purely empty. Barely any plot to be found. Good guys return to the moon. Villagers farm. Good guys get exposition. They battle the bad guys. That's it! If it weren't for Snyder's obsession with slow-mo, this movie would have been shorter than a trip to the bathroom, and I mean going number 1. Seriously, have you ever dreamt of watching a sci-fi flick where 10 freaking minutes are dedicated to a grain harvest? I mean, really? Slow motion grains? It's like Snyder wanted to fill the runtime after he realized he had nothing left to offer. Oh, and the character exposition. Yeah, prepare yourself for that because we finally get to know these characters we've been watching for a movie and a half. By this point, I could not give a tinker's cuss about who they are or even remember their names. I totally forgot that Tarzan guy was even in these movies, for crying out loud. Yes, I could have just rewatched Rebel Moon Part 1 to bone up on my Rebel Moon trivia in my brain, but in my defense, I just didn't want to. But wait, let's take a moment to appreciate Djimon Hounsou. This man can take a toilet paper script and breathe life into the crappiest of words. This man gives his all. He gives every fiber of his soul to whatever project he's in. And he is the second good thing about this movie, right after Anthony Hopkins bought. These two are carrying the weight of this whole mess on their shoulders, and they just didn't deserve that. Don't even get me started on the ground battle because it is excruciatingly laughable. It's a showdown where the whole village comes together to fight a couple of dozen enemy soldiers. That's all this evil empire could spare, really? The day is saved not once, but twice by two Deus Ex Machina characters, with one character popping up out of nowhere, not even mentioned since the last movie. I straight up yelled, "Who the heck is that now?" Now, we all know that Zack Snyder pitched this as a Star Wars movie, and Lucasfilm was like, nah, bro, we're good. Well, he made his movie anyway, with blackjack and hookers, and shamelessly borrows elements from the epic, legendary space saga. You've got your evil empire, you've got rebels, you've got droids, you've even got lightsabers, even though it's not really lightsabers, but it's totally lightsabers. It's all here, folks. I wouldn't be surprised if Zack Snyder's future sequels magically introduce space wizards. I mean, after the dismal response to these movies, they are going to need some magic for them to continue. But when it comes to Rebel Moon IP, I say Star Wars sums it up best. Let Rebel Moon die.
Kill it if you have to.
In conclusion, Rebel Moon Part 2 follows in its predecessor's footsteps as a bloated, self-important, ugly mess with awful pacing, cringe-worthy dialogue, and characters you will forget as soon as the credits roll. It takes the bar that Part 1 lowered and limbos under it, giving us all the middle finger in the process. I'm sorry to do this to you, but this could very well be the worst movie of 2024. I know I'm jinxing it, but I really want to know if I have some kind of weird power to make movies suck just by declaring another as bad. Call me Darth Omen, the crap giver. I cannot wait to never watch this movie again. Before we wrap up, I want to give a massive shout out to my awesome group of Patreons: John Borg, Juliano Toniato, James Gibbons, and Bradley Amiel Julian. You guys keep me going, reminding me that there's hope even when faced with monstrosities like Rebel Moon. You are my children of fire, and I'll keep fighting for you. If you're not part of my Patreon club yet, I'd love for you to join our ranks, and if you've got a measly $5 a month to spare, check out the link in the video description below. But if you ain't got $5 to spare, it's okay. We still love you, even if you're poor. Well, that wraps up this adventure. Stay tuned for next time. And if the next movie is worse than this one, I'm just gonna quit. I'm gonna quit this whole gig. Or I'll eat ice cream until I feel better. Who knows? It depends on my mood. Thank you for giving us a view. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps us out. And remember, stay far, far away from Rebel Moon. It's no moon. It's a bad movie. And be sure to join us next time to find out what Jason watches.